Hey everyone, Amina here with the Float Small Business Podcast, speaking with Alex Devendra from Aligned Law about some of the legal complexities that COVID-19 has caused and a few things for us to think about as we reopen our businesses. Thanks so much, Alex.
Thanks, Amina. It's great to be here.
So I am really interested. What have you been hearing from the community on the legal side of things? And what do you wish people would consider as they reopen and all of the other challenges during COVID-19?
Yeah, there's certainly no shortage of challenges that people are going through. And I mean, especially like, for example, with the PPP Paycheck Protection Program, loan program, lots of questions about, am I eligible for forgiveness and what do I have to do to meet those requirements? And the answer that so many attorneys and CPAs and other professionals are giving are that, well, we don't really know. The regulations are changing. New guidance is coming out. So it's like even the people that you might think to go to for an answer can't really give you a satisfying answer. And so I don't know. My perspective is like, I want people just to be thinking just commonsensically, like, hey, what is going to work for me and like the people I'm responsible for, and like let's actually just talk and figure out what's going to work for you guys, and not worry quite so much what the letter of the law says, because I feel like we can't really totally rely on that anyway.
So, but we can't really tell people to not follow the law. But if the law is always changing and we don't know what's going to be in store tomorrow, how are you advising people to move forward?
I mean, I think you just do the best you can and follow the guidance that is out there, whether that's CDC guidelines or OSHA guidelines about safe workplaces. And it's like, if you're coming at it from a good intention and trying to do right by your employees or your customers, even if something does go wrong, hopefully the fact that you were being intentional about things and trying to do the right thing will go a long way to providing a path to a satisfactory resolution for everyone.
Yeah. This time requires us to be asking ourselves really deep questions about who we are and what we believe. Keeping somebody on payroll is bigger than just a financial decision. Yeah. And I just don't know. I just don't know how to make some of those big decisions when we're just struggling to put food on the table.
Yeah. And yeah, I don't know that I have a simple answer to that, but I know I've heard someone say, like, okay, what's worst case scenario? I have to file for bankruptcy. And they went and they talked to a bankruptcy attorney. And then they realized, okay, that's not actually the end of the world. Like, that's something I could do and I can see what it might look like on the other side. So that kind of like took some of the fear away for them of wow. Okay, even worst case scenario, like, there's a process in place to deal with that, and here's what it might look like, and hopefully I won't get there, but just knowing that that's there and that sure. you're kind of like a little bit familiar with what that process would be, can maybe alleviate some of the uncertainty, the fear and the anxiety. I know of this bankruptcy attorney who doesn't say anywhere on his website that he's an attorney. He just says that he like helps people get through financial crises, and because I think there's, this perception that you don't want to go to a lawyer or that bankruptcy is scary. But if you just think about it as like, oh, this is someone who could help me through a challenge I'm having,
right,
and have a conversation with them, that maybe demystifies it a little bit.
Yeah, I bet. Holy cow. Yeah. I realize that you can't give blanket legal advice. So forgive me if this is not a question that you can answer. But I wonder if there are any questions that you're getting rather frequently from a legal perspective that you can help our community navigate a little bit more.
Yeah, one of these challenges is that with the temporary bump in unemployment, some people are getting more on unemployment than they were getting paid at their job. And so there's this conundrum of like, okay, well, I have to, with the PPP loans, I have to bring my employees back and pay them what they were getting paid before, but they don't necessarily want to come back. And it might be important for people to understand that temporary unemployment status, one of the requirements is that you be available to go back to your job when you're called back. So that's hopefully the extra money was nice while you were getting it. And then if you decline an offer to return to work, that may cut off your benefits going forward.
Oh,
So,
interesting. Yeah.
but again, that's where the fear, some people have a fear around
Right.
what their exposure is going to be. And so then they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, because if they refuse to come back, they may lose their benefits, but they're not really totally comfortable coming back. And that's where I think just like an honest conversation around, okay, what are the precautions that we can take? What are the actual risks? But, everyone's situation is different. Some people may be living with someone who's particularly at risk. And so even if they themselves are fairly healthy, they may have these other reasons why they're worried about coming back and getting exposure. So
right.
I don't think that there's necessarily a one size fits all answer. Everyone's having to make some really tough choices.
Right. And I think something that I've also been hearing in the community is sort of the ethical question around, what if one of my customers were to get sick, either as a result of being in my store, or maybe they think it was as a result of being in my store. Is that a liability for me? Or what if I'm asking my employees to come back and the state says, okay, it's time, you can do it, and we followed all of the protocols, but they still feel like it's unsafe? Like, how do you navigate that from a legal perspective?
Yeah. Well, to the question about liability, the truth is that it would be very hard for someone to prove where they were exposed or which exposure caused them to get sick. So
okay.
I think that may be a little bit of a red herring. I know that's been in the news because in Congress, there's been debates about whether future aid relief should be tied to a requirement that, businesses be kind of indemnified from that kind of liability.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, I don't think that's really that big of an issue, because I think if you're practicing good, the CDC guidelines around hygiene and being sensible, you're not being reckless, you're not being negligent, and it would be very hard for anyone to prove that you were the person that got them sick anyway.
Gotcha. Okay. I'm curious, have you had to pivot your business very much due to the crisis, or has work stayed kind of the same for you?
Luckily, I was set up as a virtual practice already. So in terms of the logistics of working and meeting with clients, that hasn't changed too much. Although I've definitely had some clients who wanted to put things on pause, or they're worried about their income stream. At the same time, there's people that are maybe newly unemployed and they're going to give it a go starting their new venture. Or another thing I do is transformative mediation. So I've heard that there's lots of kind of business owners that are kind of having to have tough conversations among co-founders, for example, and they may need like a third-party facilitator to have those tough conversations. So there's still ways to add value. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Well, thank you for supporting the community in that way, and for also committing to be working with purpose-driven companies, because I think we need more of that.